Johannesburg is the city of gold turning into the city of ashes. We speak to Action SA President Mr. Herman Mashaba after another fire gutted yet another hijacked building in Johannesburg the past weekend. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you so much, and compliments, Chris, and to all your BizNews listeners and followers.
The last fire killed over 77 people. What can you tell us about the latest one?
Really very sad, heartbreaking, something that was avoidable, completely avoidable. I just want to remind South Africans about what I did to avert this. When I became the mayor of the city of Johannesburg in August 2016, on the 1st of December, during my 100 days to give an update to the residents of my position, what I found and what my plans were. One of the issues I raised and raised unapologetically was the issue of hijacked buildings in a city where we had over 300,000 housing backlog, but at the same time a city that was in fast becoming in decay. A city just 20 years, 30 years earlier, as you are aware, Johannesburg was one of our most modern cities. We witnessed its decay over time. So when I took over, I said, no, we cannot allow the situation to continue where our own people, particularly South Africans, live in squalor in this, what we call informal settlements, which are squatter camps. And at the same time, we allow criminal syndicates to take over the city. And I said, this is not going to happen under my watch, under my authority. I said, we are going to embark on a massive project to reclaim this city, offer it to the private sector to build affordable accommodation for South Africans. And unfortunately, at the time, some people decided to unleash vitriol against me, calling me all sorts of names and so forth. But lucky, I had the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa behind me. I had a moral ground behind me. And I went on that move. I served for 3 years. In the 3 years, I served as an executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg. I managed to expropriate 154 buildings, offer them to the private sector through council. 154 buildings. We identify all in all 600 buildings which were on our radar screen. By the time I left, we had already awarded 154 buildings to the value of 32 billion rands in investment to create 22,000 permanent jobs, create 14,000 housing opportunities. And part of these housing opportunities, our condition to the private sector was that 30% of all the units must actually go to residents paying plus minus 1,000 rands a month. And the private sector had absolutely no problem with it. We were oversubscribed when we put these properties in the market. And I committed to people of South Africa that I will release a minimum of 100 buildings every single year, as long as I'm a mayor. If you look at your records, the last council meeting I attended before the ANC and the DA planned to have a motion of no confidence against me. The last council meeting, the records are there. I had already presented at that council meeting 30 factories in and around Wynberg, Alexander area and other areas. Council approved that I can start a process of awarding these factories to turn into low-cost housing for South Africans. Unfortunately, that move by the DA and the ANC to remove me as executive mayor, I just could not wait for a motion of no confidence. I left. And upon my departure, you can ask Johannesburg Property Company. They were given instruction by the ANC new government to put that project on ice. They called it the Mashaba project. And that project had nothing to do with my personal name. It was a project for people of South Africa. It was a project to save our city. So what we are seeing happening right now, it is still really the beginning until such time that this government, this unpatriotic, uncaring government is removed. Otherwise, if we can try anything else, we can try it, but we must understand, we must accept the consequences of us being afraid to really deal with issues head on. Because if we think we can deal with this with sort of political platitudes, we will be playing with the lives of South Africans and innocent people.
So, do you hold the ANC and the DA directly responsible for the situation not improving?
Well, without any doubt, there was a plan approved by council. It is there, the Inner City Rejuvenation Project. If there's any South African who claim not to know about this, the records are there. Going to the city of Johannesburg, it passed by council. It's not things I'm not talking about an academic stuff that a professor teaches at the university. This is a very difficult project, massive resistance when I embark on this project, a lot of sabotage. But because I'm a fighter, I fought and managed to really get the support of other parties to really go in with me to ensure that we can get the private sector involved. And the private sector in this country willing to work with a government that is not corrupt, government that actually has got a political will to do what is right.
After this weekend's fire, the city once again gave the assurance that it is working to address the issue of hijacked buildings by creating long-term sustainable plans for residents. Have you seen any evidence of that?
Can they explain what they mean by that? Because it's well and good. Political platitudes is one thing, but doing things practically. I'm giving you practical things that are approved by council. Actually, if you look at it right now, the current ANC government, it's in contempt of council. It's in breach of council past resolutions. The private sector spent money to bid for these properties, and for the ANC to take over and immediately stop this project. It was an illegal act. It was an evil act that is now today leading to the death of innocent people. This matter was
Apart from a series of fires, some quite mysterious, there have been gas explosions, flood damage, and many people believe that is simply because the infrastructure is not being maintained.
Well, absolutely. I think when I took over as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, one of the first things I did was to do an infrastructure backlog. At the time, I immediately reported. As soon as I got the report, I shared it. I had a press conference to share with the people of Johannesburg and broader South Africa that Johannesburg at the time in 2017 was sitting with 170 billion rands of infrastructure backlog. And I gave the breakdown of each department, be roads, be electricity, be sewer infrastructure, and so forth. That report it's there. So we know what is happening. So you can imagine when I took over 170 billion rands, and we started, if you look at the budget we passed, the last budget I passed before I resigned. By that time, we had already managed to move infrastructure spend from when I took over. ANC was spending 51%. We moved it to 72%. Without bringing any money, was just coming from the savings of unnecessary things, TV subscriptions, newspapers, having parties and celebrations and so forth. Over 2 billion rands of money that was not really money that I got from anyway, money from the savings. When I took over, Chris, can you believe it? 2 days as a mayor, I wake up 6 o'clock, someone is delivering newspapers at my door. Every newspaper in the country. And I said to myself, what the hell, when am I going to get a chance to read papers? I don't have the time to read one paper. People deliver this to my house. Then when a few days later, I called the city manager, Trevor Fowler, to say, what the hell is going on? Why? Who else is getting this paper? How much are we spending? 18 million rands of spend on newspapers. I said, how long is this contract running? He says, no, fortunately enough, it's running on a month-to-month basis. I said, please, I'm giving you instructions, stop it. We stopped it. In all the senior officials, we had full bouquet of DSTV, costing the city just over R1 million a month. I said, what the hell on earth is happening? When are we going when are people going to be watching television? If you want the DSTV, when watch it at home. Lucky also, I discovered the contract was running on a month-to-month basis. I said, you stop it. Let me give you one example that is easy to understand. When we took over, ANC had already approved their budget. In just on travel alone, they had 76 million rands budget for international travel. The executive mayor's travel, I think it was something like 28 million rands of travel. I can tell you, I then said to the city manager, because obviously this is approved the budget, but I, however, have the right, because I can't have people traveling the world when South Africans have got problems. I said, I would really request city manager, every travel that is anyone wants to undertake, please can it be brought to my office to sign it off. I'm not against anyone traveling. Just want to know where these people are going. You know how much we spent the first year? Is there audited numbers by the Auditor General? Spent 3.6 million rand. People stop the travel. So this is just to give you an example of necessary expenses that the ANC.
Now, with funds not being spent the way it should be on improving and maintaining and repairing infrastructure, do you think the decay of Africa's richest city can be halted and reversed?
Well, it can be halted and reversed if people of South Africa, particularly as Black people, because we're in a majority, as Black people are the ones to decide who gets into government. If the Black people, particularly the youth, can come out and vote this government out of power. Otherwise, this country, come 2024 elections, if this government is elected back into power in South Africa, then we must accept it's going to become another failed African state. And South Africa, I can assure you, when we fail, Zimbabwe will look like a Sunday school picnic.
So now I see that you felt quite nostalgic this weekend for the days of Bophuthatswana and the rule of Lucas Mangophe. Why do you believe Homeland governance was far more progressive than African National Congress governance?
Well, it wasn't a question of being nostalgic. It was being fair and honest with ourselves. I think, Chris, anyone of my age or younger or older, they can tell you when ANC took over Bophuthatswana in 1994, Bophuthatswana was one of the most progressive places in South Africa. With the limited budget Lucas Mangophe used to get from the National Party. So, as I've said, if we knew then what we know today, you can imagine if we had someone like Lucas Mangophe being in charge of national treasury, national budget, where will this country be? Mafikeng, I grew up in Amanskraal. To Mangophe and his government build factories I started my business career in the so-called Botswana. Never had contact with Lucas Mangope or any of his officials. I've never personally met Lucas Mangope before. I started in a 200 square meter factory. 5 years later, I had built my own factory, 6,000 square meters. No government official ever came anywhere near me. I only had dealings with officials, professional officials, black and white, from the Botswana Development Corporation, assisting us with any hiccups, any blockages. No dealing. I did not need any politician to open doors for me. And at 1994 came. Can you do anything today without government intervention? That's why you see today captains of industry are also captured by this corrupt government.
Instead of looking at the odds in the upcoming election, let's look at the stakes. If the African National Congress retains power, what will South Africa look like, Mr. Mashaba? What will Johannesburg look like?
Well, what you are seeing here, it's actually will be honestly, as I said, Zimbabwe will look like a Sunday school picnic because with the level of high unemployment, particularly of the youth, with the deep-rooted corruption, with load shedding, all these things are going to continue because ANC it's not a question of only being corrupt. They have no knowledge of what they're doing. These are people not really trained to do anything. They've never done anything in their lives. So we put them in charge of institutions, and instead of allowing the bureaucrats, allowing the administration to be independent, there's political interference. So you look at in all the top structures of ANC government, all cadres with no knowledge. Even those with the knowledge, unfortunately, you try and do anything that is inside the law, the ANC government would not allow you. You've got to be part of their corruption. So in the event of ANC retaining power, I'm afraid, and I'm not a prophet, and I don't profess to be one, I'm really dreadful of another 5 years of ANC government.
Thank you. That was Mr. Herman Mashaba, the president of Action SA, speaking to BizNews. I'm Christine. Thank you, sir.